Imagine this, a massive presidential aircraft, Air Force One, white and blue fuselage, the flag, the seal, everything exactly as it should be. The cameras are already trained on you, lenses gleaming. Operators know it's coming. This is the shot. You start climbing the stairs. One step, another. The cameras track you from below, upward like a solemn movie trailer. And then you fall. Not stumble, not lose your balance. You fall properly. You get up and fall again. Then again. At this point, it's no longer an accident, it's a sequence. Journalists freeze. Security doesn't know what to do. Help you up? Block the view? Pretend this is all part of the plan. You're lying there, just lying there. You fell, and you are the President of the United States. Every second of it is captured in HD. Your day doesn't start with briefings or reports. It starts with a reality check. Who you are, where you are, what day it is. Sometimes it takes a moment. You walk out to a press conference and calmly announce that you're running for the Senate. A few seconds later, your aides exchange nervous glances. No, you're running for President of the United States. You forgot. It happens. In the comments under the video, people are already writing, 80 million voters elected a man who doesn't know which office he's running for. This isn't satire. These are quotes. At public events, someone is assigned to you. His job is simple. Make sure you don't trip, don't fall off the stage, and walk in the right direction. He points, cues, sometimes literally takes your hand. It looks like care, but reads like an operating manual. And even that doesn't always work. You still shake hands with people who aren't there. You do it confidently with a presidential smile. The camera catches it. The comments follow instantly. He's greeting the deep state. Invisible cabinet meeting. The shadow government finally revealed. Sometimes you just freeze. You stand there, staring at nothing. Glassy eyes, face slightly twisted. Time passes. No one intervenes. The cameraman is loving it. He knows this is gold. Close up, silence, tension. He already sees the headline and the view count. You'll be back in the recommendations again. YouTube loves footage like this. The world loves footage like this. People share it with the caption, "Leader of the free world." Meanwhile, the whispering starts. The questions. So who's actually running the country? Formally, you are. Informally, no one knows. After the Epstein files are released, people online start writing that you're supposedly no longer around, that you're bedridden, and what the public sees is a carefully made-up actor, that he adjusts his mask at NATO meetings. It sounds insane, but the internet doesn't care. The internet needs a story, and you always provide one. You've become a meme factory, a permanent highlight reel. People laugh because it's funny. And laughter, as we know, prolongs life, especially someone else's. Remember when you fell off a bicycle? At first, everyone gasped. Then the comments exploded. The bicycle is the only thing that defeated democracy. Gravity voted against him. You don't even resist anymore. You're part of culture now. Your list of verbal slip-ups has a life of its own. You greet people who have been dead for years. You mix up countries, dates, offices. In the United States, you suddenly say, "God save the Queen." The internet doesn't laugh once. It laughs endlessly. Every new moment stacks on top of the last. Context doesn't matter. Corrections don't matter. It's all recorded. And then there's your special talent, turning any official speech into a strange piece of folk mythology. The clearest example is the corn pop story. You tell it with such confidence, as if it were part of the Democratic Party charter. According to your version, it's 1962. You're a young guy, barely over 20, working as a lifeguard at a public pool in Delaware. And you have a problem. Not with paperwork, not with management, with the local tough guy known as Corn Pop. You describe him as the bad dude, the leader of a gang called the Romans. Not Roman in the historical sense, just a street crew that supposedly ran the area. According to you, Corn Pop ran a bunch of bad boys, carried a straight razor, and was waiting for you by the pool to beat you up. And then comes the climax. Instead of calling the police, asking for help, or simply walking away, you decide to confront him directly. According to your story, you arm yourself with a 6-foot chain. 6 feet, a chain, a pool, a razor, a gang. It all sounds like a scene from a low-budget Western. You describe walking out to Corn Pop and his guys, the tense standoff, and how Corn Pop eventually backs down. The video of this story, recorded back in 2017, resurfaces online years later. And that's when it gets its second life. People listen in fascination. The comments pour in. The first thing everyone says, "We need to hear Corn Pop's version of this story." Someone writes, "He sounds like my drunk neighbor telling incoherent stories about the 70s. Someone else fixates on your line, "I was smart then," and adds, "Yeah, clearly not anymore." The story stops being a memory and turns into a meme. People replay it line by line, laughing at how the President of the United States describes a street showdown with a possibly imaginary gangster named Corn Pop. The most painful part isn't even the story itself. It's how it sounds coming from someone claiming the highest office in the country. One of the most upvoted comments sums it up brutally. Bloomberg spent $500 million just to lose to this guy. That single sentence captures everything. The absurdity of the tale, the political context, and the overwhelming sense that what you're hearing isn't a crafted narrative, but a stream of memories with no breaks. Of course, you mix up your own biography too. At different times, you've given different years for your son's death. Sometimes it's 2015, Sometimes other dates that don't match reality. You even managed to confuse wars. In one speech, you talked about the war in Iraq while describing events in Afghanistan, only for it to turn out later that you meant something else entirely. There's also the genre of self-mythologizing. You once claimed you were arrested with Nelson Mandela while trying to visit South Africa. Presumably, people thought you were a very famous black freedom fighter. Oops, turns out it never happened. The White House carefully explained that you misspoke, but the line was already out there. Because imagining a US president being jailed alongside Mandela is simply too good to let go. You mix up roles. In one speech, you referred to yourself as your sister's husband. In another, you claim to have taught at a place where you never worked. You talk about trips and meetings that don't line up with dates and can't be verified. And every time, the explanation is the same. Fatigue, a slip of the tongue, a long day. But by then, the audience no longer cares. Sometimes you just lose the thread entirely. You start a sentence and abandon it halfway through, replace it with another, then a third. In the end, the speech turns into a collection of fragments that never form a single thought. Editors love these moments. They don't need context. They stand on their own. And then comes the final act, the debate day. With Trump, you walk out confidently. In your head, everything sounds clear and logical. You know what you want to say. You're ready. At least that's how it feels to you. The cameras turn on, and reality separates itself from your intentions. Sentences break apart. Words get stuck. The thought drifts off and never comes back. You stumble, lose your rhythm, stare into empty space, as if searching for the rest of the sentence somewhere off camera. At that moment, Trump gets the floor. He's been listening carefully. Then he smiles and delivers the line that instantly becomes the headline of the night. I have no idea what he just said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows either. The room laughs. You stay silent. The cameras catch everything. This isn't an exchange of arguments. It's a public dismantling. The internet explodes instantly. Comments move faster than clips. Trump versus The Walking Dead. I watch this whenever I need a laugh. For half the debate, Joe looked like he just found out he was the president. No one discusses economics, foreign policy, or numbers. They talk about your face, your stare, the pauses, the way you look as if you've just realized where you are. Someone writes, 333 million people. And these are the best two? Others go harder. Biden constantly looks like he's barely keeping his eyes open. Emojis, laughter, GIFs. Every stumble becomes a separate clip. Every broken sentence turns into a new meme. The internet doesn't need context. Tone and silence are enough. One moment spreads especially fast. When you try to speak quickly, but instead of a coherent thought, a stream of sounds comes out. With COVID, followed by something no one can decipher. Commenters immediately finish the sentence for you. Ski beady whiz. This isn't parody anymore. It's a format. You're not being mocked. You're being quoted, just not on your terms. The most painful part of those debates isn't even Trump's words. It's the contrast. One man speaks, jokes, laughs, improvises. The other looks like he's fighting his own sentence. And in that comparison, you lose not on policy, but on the sense of self-control. It was a rout, not on points, not on programs, on impression. After the debate, no one argued about who won. They argued only about how bad it was. And that's what stuck. Not the topics, not the numbers, not the arguments, but the feeling that one of the participants simply couldn't keep up with what was happening. After the debate, everything accelerates, sharply, too sharply to feel accidental. You sense that something has gone wrong even before the official statements. Phones start ringing more often. The tone of conversations shifts. People who said, "We're holding on" yesterday now say, "We need to think." Carefully worded phrases appear in the press about exploring options and responsibility to the country. Translated simply, they're urgently trying to pull you out of the race. You see it as betrayal, and you almost say that out loud. You're convinced you can win. You're the sitting president. You have experience, the apparatus, a history of victory. You're not going anywhere, at least not right away. According to insiders, you resist to the very end. Meetings happen behind closed doors. Serious backroom maneuvering begins. Donors get nervous. Party officials crunch the numbers. Strategists stare at the data and stay silent. That's when the unpleasant truth becomes clear. The decision is no longer entirely yours. They start talking you into it. They speak about legacy, about a graceful exit, about the interests of the party. They say it will be better for everyone, especially for you. Translated from political language, you're being gently pushed out, and the longer you resist, the clearer it becomes. The support is gone. In the end, you give in, not in one dramatic gesture, but gradually. First, your wording becomes more cautious. Then you stop talking about victory. Then the statement appears. You officially withdraw from the race. That's it, period. The story is closed. Kamala Harris is nominated in your place. It's presented as renewal, a new chapter, a logical step forward. You're spoken of respectfully, but already in the past tense. You watch it from the sidelines. It's obvious it hurts. You smile, shake hands, say the right words, but it's no longer your game. You finish out the term. Formally, you're still president. In practice, you're background noise, a meme. Sometimes you disappear for weeks. Then you reappear, and the internet immediately records every gesture, every pause. You're no longer the center of events. You're a reminder of how it ended. And that's it. No climax, no final triumph. You leave not as a winner and not as a defeated opponent, but as a character written out of a series without a final season. What remains are clips, jokes, comments, and the feeling that it all ended not with drama, but with a quiet, awkward fade out. When Donald Trump comes back to power, a strange story begins circulating around Washington. Not official, not confirmed, but too persistent to ignore. They say that in the final months of your term, you weren't really working anymore, not stepping back, not reducing your schedule, but simply no longer participating in the process. Decisions passed you by, meetings happened without you, documents were signed automatically. Literally, the stamp did the work. According to the rumor, it was the stamp that became the last active figure of the administration. The story fits perfectly with what everyone saw. Rare appearances, long pauses, weeks of disappearance, no visible reaction. You were formally president, but the system was running on inertia. No arguments, no noise. Everything just rolled to the end of the term, like a train without a driver, still moving along the tracks. And Trump, as always, doesn't miss the moment. No official statements, no commissions. He just jokes. An idea circulates in the White House. What if, instead of your portrait, they hang a portrait of the stamp, not a person, not a politician, the object that, according to rumor, actually ran the country in its final months. The joke spreads instantly. The internet is delighted. Memes appear faster than press secretaries can explain. It's the perfect ending. Not a scandal, not an investigation, not a verdict, but laughter. Quiet, corrosive, final. You exit history not with a speech and not with a legacy, but with an anecdote, with the image of a man who, in the end, was replaced by an object. And that's the conclusion. The highest office in the world, the most powerful country on earth. And the last thing people say about you is that, at some point, a stamp was doing your job, not as an accusation, as a joke. And jokes, as we know, outlive any official denial.